The Surface Pro 7 is a beautiful little machine, and I used it for the past 6 months as my daily driver for all the work and all the creative stuff I do every day. So just see this as my long-term review, and I just want to give you 3 reasons why you should not buy a Surface Pro 7 at this point, and let's get started right after the intro. Here we go, and welcome to the Idea of Technology. My name is Michael, and today I just want to tell you everything about the Surface Pro 7, why I use it for the past half year, and what are the major flaws about it, and what I think should be better in the future. So Microsoft, hopefully you will listen to this video as well and just fix the 3 reasons I don't recommend buying a Surface Pro 7. So let's just address the elephant in the room, and this is absolutely my reason number 1 not to buy a Surface Pro 7. So the first and most important reason is absolutely the outdated design language of the Surface Pro 7. When I was back then working for Microsoft 6 years ago, I was so lucky to get a Surface Pro 3 as my daily driver, and if I now would have a Surface Pro 3 and a Surface Pro 7 in my same hands, I would nearly not recognize any big difference, and that's the biggest flaw the Surface Pro 7 has. It's at the end of this life cycle, so Microsoft is just using this cash cow and this design language for so long, and I hope the Surface X will inspire the completely new Surface Pro 8 in the future, and that's probably the biggest reason why you should not buy a Surface Pro 7 at this point, because the language is so outdated and the design is just really old. So when we are talking about really old, it's just the complete design language, like the screen to body ratio is just super bad. If you compare it to MacBook Pro or the Dell XPS series, there's no comparison at all. So Microsoft absolutely needs to fix a lot of things when it comes to bezel size on the Surface Pro 7, and gets more inspired by the Surface X, and hopefully the design language will move more into this direction, because this is just really outdated. Another really outdated point when it comes to design language is the I/O. I can get the point that we have just one USB Type-A port since day one with the Surface Pro, but on the other side, finally the Surface Pro 7 moved to USB Type-C with a standard of 3.2 Gen 2, so it's just pretty fast, 10 gigabits. But we can forgive them absolutely that it's not Thunderbolt 3 at this point, because you will probably not use the external GPU with your Surface Pro. I think so, at least. So I'm totally fine with USB Type-C, but the Surface dock connector is just super old, outdated. And if you can see here with my power supply, I have never used it. I don't need a power supply with a Surface connector at this point, because I've just USB Type-C. So why just not skip the Surface connector at all and just implement a second USB Type-C? This would be just way better for the complete Surface Pro lineup. I must be honest, I'm just powering everything here with my power supply from Aukey, for example. I have a USB Type-C cable that is long enough, as well as, for example, just having just a small dock like this one, connecting the USB Type-C, and just have everything on ports I need for my daily business and just move from room to room. And I don't get the point why Microsoft is not implementing a second USB Type-C port and just stick with a USB Type-A if they want to, and everything is just fine. So now we are coming to reason number 2. And reason number 2 is just pretty easy. The Surface Pro 7 is not really a pro device. And just let me explain it. When we think about pro devices, the first thing I need is to get through a complete day and complete working day of 8 hours with my device without powering and just sticking with my power break every time. And this device is absolutely not able to do this. The battery is just around about 45 watt hours, but I can just run it between 1 and 4 hours, and then the battery is just dead. Most of the time I'm just stick with 2 up to 3 hours, and that's just the complete range I'm dealing with, and this is absolutely not pro level. And yes, you could just argue that battery power is not everything in a pro certified device, you could say so, but I really need to get through the whole day. And the second point is also extremely annoying when it comes to pro devices, the fan. If you're going for the i7 like I have here, it's the most powerful CPU you can get in here, and it's just super good when you have short, really high performance boosts you need. You can get from this 1.5 gigahertz up to 3.5 and maintain this for 1 minute. After this, you will have a lot of thermal throttling, and because Microsoft will always try to get the CPU under 60 degrees Celsius, which is in my opinion just way too low. You have no chance to adjust the fan curve whatsoever, so it's not able to get to 80 degrees or 90 degrees, even though the CPU is just certified to maintain a 100 degrees Celsius. And 60 is just really low, especially in the summer, when you can get in Germany around about 30 to 40 degrees Celsius outside. So I don't get the point. You have a lot of power, but it's absolutely just constrained with a small form factor, and I would rather get a bigger Surface Pro 8, for example, with more battery capacity and more cooling capacity, and that's the reason why I don't think the Surface Pro 7 is a pro device. And yes, the fan curve just gets me crazy. It's just super annoying. When you charge the device, it's always on full load just to keep the battery cool and the CPU and GPU, because the Iris Pro graphics just also needs a lot of cooling on this chip. And the fan is just always noticeable. So just rather, if you want a silent device, just go for something passively cool like i3 or i5. But if you want the most power and need an i7, just stick with the life that the fan is just so annoying. You will hear it every time, and you can only adjust the fan curve by adjusting the power plans. And just don't think about just that it changes a lot of things, but it's just super annoying for a device like this that you don't have a lot of control about it. And that brings us perfectly to reason number 3 and why I would not recommend buying a Surface Pro 7 at this point. And this is probably the most ridiculous reason I can give you.
Developers.
It's the software, the drivers, and the firmware. So what do I mean with this? You could argue, yeah, it's the hardware from Microsoft, it's the operating system by Microsoft, as well as every other drivers, firmwares, whatever. And exactly there lies a really big problem. For example, when I got this device, I had a lot of trouble using the Surface Pen with my Surface Pro 7 that comes together because of a really stupid Intel driver issue combined with a special Windows build that I was not able to write on my screen, because every time the tip of the pen will touch the screen, it will start to flicker. And it's just super annoying, and you really can't use the pen at this point. Yeah, this is not a reason why I would buy a detachable to write on it, but it's not possible at this point. And on the software side, I have really big problems. On the one hand, with an early preview of Windows 10, I was just trying to test on this device, and I was not able to run it, so I'm just a little bit curious why Microsoft had their own hardware at this point and their early bird software they want to just try out and test. And I'm just in the slow ring, not in the fast ring for Windows 10, but I still have so many problems that it's not usable together with the Surface Pro 7 at this point. And the last but not least, when it comes to software, I'm using a lot of Microsoft Teams, especially in this time when I'm just working from home all the time. My Microsoft device, Surface Pro 7, together with Windows 10 from Microsoft and Microsoft Teams, I was not able to have a really good experience, and I can absolutely tell you why. Because Microsoft Teams is pretty resource hungry, we know this, but on the other hand, I have a really weird driver issue together with Intel and Microsoft drivers, because you can't just use the Intel driver utility to get the latest drivers on your Surface Pro 7, because you need to go to Microsoft, and Microsoft is I think 3 or 4 drivers late when it comes to the latest graphics driver, and that's the reason you have a really weird behavior at this point, that at the moment you get in a Microsoft Teams call and someone is using their camera to show themselves, or you using your own camera to show yourself, the driver will start to utilize the complete GPU. This just causes the CPU to throttle down to 400 megahertz, and you can just imagine you cannot use the Surface Pro 7 at this point at all. And I get this every single time. The fan's also ramping up like a lot, and you can imagine this because your GPU is just fully utilized, and the moment you're changing your power plans, it's totally gone, and 5 minutes later you will get it again. So this behavior just drives me crazy, and it's also a big reason why I would not recommend using a Surface Pro 7 at this point. Just because of these whole weird software, firmware, driver issues Microsoft and the Microsoft hardware is just dealing with. And I'm not the only one. If you're looking to forums about it, you will just notice there are a lot of people dealing with the very same problems, and Microsoft is not able to fix them. So these are my 3 reasons why I would not recommend buying a Surface Pro 7 at this point, as well as you can imagine that the Surface Pro 8 will probably launch around about the beginning of the next year, 2021. So probably just wait a little bit, and just if you get a really great deal on the Surface Pro 7 and you really need a detachable and you're not able to get a 2-in-1 or a convertible, and you really need a detachable like this, the Surface Pro 7 is still the best on the market, and you should buy it. And there are a lot of big and great deals on Amazon or somewhere else, so just go for it if you want to. But I just want to give the 3 reasons why I would not recommend buying it at this point. And if you disliked this video, you know what to do. But if you liked it, hit like down there, get subscribed, and enable the notifications with the bell icon so you won't miss any future video of the idea of technology. And I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.